Hey everyone, welcome to the Self-Awareness Journey podcast. I'm Melissa Albers.
And I'm JJ Parker. This podcast is for seekers of happiness and joy, seekers of a centered approach to success in life, seekers of their true, authentic selves.
Get ready for some real talk on everything from anxiety, emotions, and habits to love, compassion, and forgiveness. We know you'll be challenged and enlightened by this conversation. We're so glad you're here. Let's dive in.
Hey, you sent me an interesting little video.
Oh yeah, did you like that?
Yeah, from Tim Ferriss. Tim Ferriss.
Tim Ferriss. Yeah, Tim Ferriss.
So what's funny is you go, hey, watch this thing from this guy. And then I open it up and it's like, oh, this is Tim Ferriss. Like, I've read a couple of his books. I've seen a bunch of his stuff.
Right. And I had seen his book, The One, but I didn't realize it was him until you said that. And then I was like, oh.
So this dude wrote The 4-Hour Work Week.
No, 4 day. 4 day?
No, 4-hour work
4
week.
hour. Okay.
Yeah, working 4 days, that seems like a lot. Let's go for 4 hours.
So was it the 4-hour work day? Is that what you just...
No, it's the 4-hour work week.
Okay.
Okay, let's focus.
And we're
Come
back.
on.
Sorry. And we're back.
Well, this dude is an interesting character.
Oh my gosh,
He's
he
very,
ever?
very thoughtful.
Mm-hmm.
He does this thing where he does all these experiments on himself. So he's like what I would call a biohacker. He does all these like nutrition experiments on himself, all this like physical, all this exercise experiments. Like he wants to know what is like the most efficient way to exercise. What is the best way to eat? Like he just tries to optimize everything in his life.
Yeah.
Goal setting, like plan. It's remarkable.
I know. He's just
remarkable.
like on high. He's like on high alert 24/7. I mean, I think even in this video, he talks about that.
Yeah. So the thing that's so interesting about this little snippet, we'll maybe put in the show comments. It's about fear setting. So
yes. Yep.
So he talks about a time in his life that wasn't so great, that he was going to commit suicide.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And he decided to not do that, which was a good choice.
Yeah.
But then he talked about how he needed to figure out how he could control the things he control and think about the things that you can't control, because he was getting too influenced by the things he can't control.
Right.
And he did talk about stoicism for a minute.
Yeah. Yeah, he did.
I'm a big fan of. It's like a way of thinking, like the stoic way of thinking. Have you read about that?
Yeah. Let's just, I want to just put a couple little arms around this before we keep going. So this guy is, highly successful, highly self-motivated, like almost to an extreme level of motivation. And in his own thinking patterns, would hit high highs, low lows. And actually, I think he even says he's bipolar. Is that right? I'm trying to remember if the video. Okay. And so he, when he talks about this horrible, fateful day when he was going to take his life, and then he decided not to, when he came off of that emotional ledge and he was reflecting on it, he was stunned at the fact that the only reason it didn't happen was because of a couple of situational things that, there were just a couple of chance items in there. And so he began to explore how to control some of that in a different way. Like, I think, so then exactly, and you just said all that, but I just wanted to sort of put it in more of that timeline. And then he talks about stoicism being one of the ways to manage these high highs and low lows was to not have so much emotion and to learn how to look at something.
He actually referred to stoicism as an operating system.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is an interesting way to phrase it.
Yeah.
Like it's your human operating system. I've always thought it was a really good model for thinking.
I agree. I had not been familiar with them, and it was so interesting to me that I saw this and I was so blown away by this short little video and then you're like, oh yeah, and here he's done this and this and this and this and this and this and this.
Not that this is a commercial for Stoicism, but I do have my book right here called The Daily Stoic.
Oh my gosh, you guys!
Right here on my desk.
He's holding up a book cover.
Yeah, it's on my desk. And
is that his?
Nope. This book is written by a guy named Ryan Holiday, and he's written a whole a handful of books around the Stoic way of thinking.
Oh, got it. Okay.
So this would be like,
I
don't know, it's kind of like ancient Greece stuff, right? This is like Marcus Aurelius and all these deep thinkers from, they all have really interesting names. Like,
yeah. So, Tim uses this philosophy or talks about this philosophy as one of the mechanisms to help control
your emotions and your way of looking at the universe. When I started studying Stoicism, the thing, and it, obviously it resonated with me maybe more than it does with other people, but when I was going through reading about the Stoic way of thinking and what those folks like hundreds of years ago, how they thought about how the universe and how the world and the universe works, I was like, holy cow, this is exactly how I think. I mean, it felt so comforting to read about this way of thinking. And then it did challenge me on some things like, oh, they're phrasing things in a certain way. And it really helped me start thinking about how I perceive and interact with the world. I think it's super helpful. Yeah. We don't need to go again on like a Stoic commercial.
Maybe we'll do some. We should maybe do a pod on Stoicism sometime because that's really interesting.
I would like to do that.
Yeah. Well, we will.
Okay. Put that on the list. Okay. But the thing with Tim's video is, and that moment in his life, he talked about being driven by fear.
Right.
And you and I talk about how there's only those two sponsoring emotions
to everything,
love and fear. And and he dives into this idea that we can actually use fear as a way, in a positive way.
Yeah. And that was so fascinating to me because we always talk about how do you manage to dissipate fear? We're always talking about ways to reframe fear, don't, understand why you're fearful. But his was something I had never considered before.
And we talk about goal setting quite a bit.
Yes.
Rewind near every first of the year. You and I will have an episode about goal setting, our crazy goals, our big sheets of goals. Well, my big sheets of goals.
And my Post-it note.
My crazy tracking, my spreadsheets. It's all my goal. Note. What are we going to get done? But he talks about fear setting.
Yes.
Use the similar technique to set your fears.
Right.
Which is I never thought about that.
No, I know. And in his core, I can't remember how he had language around why he felt that this was such a good thing. And then he offered an actual specific way to do it.
Yep, I got that.
Good.
I got that written down for you.
I didn't take my good notes. Okay.
Okay, so
that's shocking.
So Tim's fear setting exercise.
Yes. Well, what was the why though? Like, so can you remember how he phrased that? Like how he felt that was beneficial?
Let's walk through this and then it's going to be obvious to you.
Got it. Okay.
And now we're going to ask you why you think it's beneficial, not why Tim thinks it's beneficial.
No, I got to get now I feel nervous. Okay.
Yeah,
I feel fearful.
Get your pencil out.
Okay, I'm ready.
Glasses on.
I'm ready.
So he talked about a 3-page exercise where, and this is the fear setting exercise. So page 1 at the top says, what if I, and then you define your fears. So, for that thing. So let's just walk through maybe a typical fear scenario here. So what if I ask my boss for a raise?
Okay.
That's scary, right? Okay, so what if I ask my boss for a raise? What are the fears? He'll say no. I'll feel rejected.
So there is a column then that you would add.
There's
what
column,
are the fears about that?
Like, I'll be embarrassed. I'm not worth it, right? He'll realize that I actually am terrible at my job and fire me on the spot.
Right.
I don't think that, but we get all of these fears in our head and we start expanding on it, right? So he says, take that idea, and just go run out all your fears.
Yeah.
Write them down. As ridiculous as they are, just write them all down.
Yeah.
What could happen that's going to go so bad?
Yeah.
And then
I love it.
For each one of those, talk about how you could prevent it or how you could repair it. So prevent or repair.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Fascinating, right? Okay, so like
So if I want a raise, but I don't, I really want a raise, but I actually have been kind of phoning it in at work, and I maybe don't quite deserve one, but I want to ask for one anyway.
Right.
Maybe the repair is I'm going to show up 10 minutes early every single day to show that I'm really hustling and I really do deserve a raise. That would be a repair.
Right.
Maybe prevent is, you could do, there's lots of things you can do to prevent something bad from happening.
Right, exactly. Like so as you were giving that example, in my mind, I was thinking like, what if your example is, I'm afraid I'm going to run out of money, or I won't be able to retire, or I won't have enough money to pay my bills, right? Like that's a what if question that lots of people I think go to. And what are the fears of that? Oh my gosh, I could lose my house. I could lose my car. I could not be able to keep up with my friends. I would be. And then if you look at the prevent and repair, the prevent is be more mindful early on. Like, can you save $10 a week? Or, you know what I mean? Like something very simple in terms of preventative. Or repair. If you've gotten over your skis with stuff, there's a number of activities that you can do then to get your arms around that.
I love the idea of repair because
I do too.
We have this idea. It's just like a this or that, yes or no. It's like a lot of times we are super black and white around fears. Yeah. But we don't have to be so black and white. This actually goes to the second part of his step. So once you define your fear and talk about how you can prevent or repair it, list out what are the benefits of being fully or even partially successful at mitigating that fear. So even if it was partially successful, what are the benefits? Like in the raise thing, maybe your boss is like, yeah, I would love to give you a raise. We just don't have the budget for it.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
How about half day Friday? Or, or here's some extra, maybe you're partially successful at that. And so I love the idea of, again, not being so black and white about what the benefits might be.
Right. Because, and what you just said is so critical in this conversation, and that is black and white thinking. Because when people feel fear, it doesn't matter what it is, who it is. Black and white thinking, I think, is fear's best friend.
Oh, that's a great way to phrase that. Totally.
We just expand the fantasy conversation in our mind to black and white, big style.
I love doing that.
Oh, man. We all do.
What?
We all do.
Isn't it funny how it's so easy to take a fear, make it yes or no, black or white, this or that, and then just expand that one side, 100%. The negative side.
Yeah, exactly. And we don't ever spend positive. We don't ever
sport.
Go, or we don't do that. I could run out of money and then I'm going to do this and I'm going to lose that. And then my friends are going to think I'm stupid. And then I don't know. And I won't be able to buy this and I won't be able to pay. Or that wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
How many times do we ever do that?
It's no fun
Never.
to think about the positive side.
No.
Okay, so once we kind of figure out what are the benefits, full or partial, of if we're successful at mitigating that fear, then the last one is my favorite.
Oh.
What is the cost of inaction?
Wow.
If I don't deal with this fear, what is the cost of it? What is it going to cost me? Right? It's going to cost me secure my feeling. It's gonna, if I don't get that raise, it's gonna, I mean, it'll cost me money, but it's more gonna cost me confidence, security, comfort, happiness, my sense of providing for my family, right?
Yeah.
It could be very deep.
Totally.
And so if you start thinking about what the cost of not doing it is, what a great motivator to actually get you to do it and get through that fear.
Well, and I think this is the part too, like the cost of things. I feel like one of the things that we always dismiss or minimize is the emotional cost on ourselves. Well, the emotional toll that we put on ourselves as a result of catastrophic thinking, staying in fear.
I talk about that at work all the time. I feel like a broken record at work because people will talk about different projects, different things happening, and I always say, like, yeah, but what's the emotional cost to our organization if we keep going down that path? Like, we're gonna stress people out, we're gonna burn everyone out. It's everything's gonna get more constricted. That's not worth it.
Yeah, I just got through reading this book called Die with Zero. It's a great
real
book.
Cheery.
It is actually
story.
It's really, really good. It's literally about how, as you reach the age of wanting to retire, how you spend your whole life having one way of thinking, like I'm saving for retirement. But how when you retire, you literally have to shift your mind into, I'm going to spend my money. And so it's just a book that forces thinking in a very different way, but I love the concept. I don't really love how it's written, to be fair. But if you went online actually and even just did like find the summary of Die with Zero, it tells you basically. But the reason I bring it up is because one of the things that's talked about in that book is what they call energy units, and how we all have a certain amount of energy units, and everything we do, we are trading our energy units. So at work, for example, an hour worth of work, you are trading in a certain amount of energy units, and how at a time in your life, if you look at a timeline of your life, there are different times of your life where you have energy for things and different times of your life where you do not. So you want to go to the Galapagos Islands, and it's a physical trip that takes a lot of hiking and that sort of thing, but you don't think you're going to have any money until you retire 10 years in and you're 75 years old or 80 years old. Will you have the energy units at that time to do that thing that you really, really wanted to? So it's all about just reframing in your mind this piece. But I love this idea of energy units because we exchange our energy units for everything, including what we think about. You know?
I like that. Yeah, I've always talked about the idea that money is actually just encapsulated time.
Yes, exactly.
And that's another great way to look at it. Because if you look at it as encapsulated energy, it's like, when are you going to have the right energy to reclaim those dollars and reclaim those energy units? I like that.
But I love it as as we're talking about it associated with fear, because what is the cost of inaction? I mean, the latest and greatest on the internet is this crazy stuff about cortisol and dopamine and people being, so taxed from anxiety that they're running constantly, right? Those are those energy things. That is the cost of not acting in certain perspectives when you are fearful about things. Like, that's a huge cost.
When I think about things that I regret in the past, almost all of them are regrets of inaction, not action.
I know. I agree.
Like, I wish I would have done whatever earlier, quicker, or at all.
I just had this conversation yesterday with my daughter and her best friend, Madeline, and my best friend, Amy, Madeline's mom. The four of us girls have hung out together for years and years. And we were talking about Snoop Dogg, okay? Here's a guy who has reinvented himself a million times. I mean, he was in the Olympics. He was, now he's a basketball fanatic.
For some reason, he's everywhere now.
He's on The Voice. He's in commercials. He does CDs of children's affirmations. Like, this guy is everywhere. Okay. Guess how old Snoop Dogg is?
No, he's old. He's got to be like 65.
He's 52 years old. He's 52.
Really?
He's young. He's young. So think about it. Like, for all that he's done.
Yeah, I should have thought about that a little bit more, because
I thought he was 67 or 70. I'm like, he has to be 70. He's got multiple grandchildren. He's lived all these experiences.
He's lived more than any of us
that ever will, probably. But yeah, talk about, he's not going to go to his grave talking about what he didn't do.
That's true. I love, that's a funny story, because like his whole personal brand is smoking marijuana, right? And fast forward to like 2024, almost 2025, and everyone in America loves that story now.
I know, and they just couldn't stand it before. I know.
Okay, so those are the three things. What if I, and then you define your fears.
Yep.
What are the benefits of success?
Oh,
and then
okay. Yep.
What is the cost of inaction? Those are like the three parts of the fear setting exercise. And then he asks this question at the end, which I thought was so good. Could defining fears be more important than defining goals?
I loved that. That
one kind of set me upside down, because as a goal setter, I was like, no, goals are the most important thing to do. That's how we know where the North Star is. That's what we drive towards. That's what we track. That's how all the metrics work. And I never thought that maybe I should make a fear, like do this fear setting instead of doing goal setting.
And he did say do it quarterly. He said do fear setting quarterly.
Yeah.
I thought that was a fascinating concept as well. And gosh, it's just not how we think. It is just not our natural way of thinking. And you just have all these barriers that come up, at least for me, all these barriers come up when you start saying to focus on your own fears for a little bit. But,
I think goal setting is more optimistic, right?
Totally.
It's like aspirational. It's like, hey, we can accomplish these things. It feels better to think about than thinking about the fears. But I kind of agree with him that I bet you fear setting is actually more useful, like in like a tactical way.
Yeah.
I bet it actually ends up making you happier in the long run if you did that exercise consistently than if you set goals consistently.
Well, and I think that there are certain people suffering with things presently in which this would be much more beneficial than goal setting. Like, I don't think that maybe this way isn't for everyone, but maybe if you are somebody who has been dealing with a unrealistic or unusually high amount of stress or anxiety, or you're finding it more difficult to manage your own feelings of inadequacy, you're feeling more depressed. I feel like this is such an incredibly useful tool, because it helps you, get it out on paper. It helps you see what's taking up so much space. And I think that when you can do that, that's when you can start letting some of it go. So I think it is a hugely useful in many applications. Now, is it? I don't know. I'm a very naturally optimistic person. I don't spend a lot of time playing around the edges of being depressed or sad. I just do not. I feel very fortunate about that. Obviously, I have times of being quiet and tired and sad, like everyone. But because of my natural personality, I think this would be a useful tool to do once or twice. I don't know whether I would find it useful as a focus, but maybe I would.
Maybe.
Who knows? I mean, it's just an interesting thing to think about.
Yeah. The other thing you said is write it down.
Yeah.
Sometimes when we write our fears down, and then you look at them on the piece of paper, you're like, well, that's ridiculous.
It's a paper tiger. It's a paper tiger. That's not real.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, cool. So, if anyone learn more about some of this stuff, stoicism, Ryan Holiday's got this book called The Daily Stoic, and a bunch of other books about stoicism, which I think is a great model of thinking.
Yeah.
And then if you Google Tim Ferriss fear setting, you'll find his TED Talk on the internet, and you can hear it firsthand, his fear setting exercise.
Yeah. And it's Ferriss is how you spell his last name, in case anybody's looking. We'll make sure to put that in the intro, though, so that people can see that.
Did you enjoy this episode? Please go to your favorite podcast platform to subscribe, rate, and leave a review so others can discover it as well.
Growing self-awareness is a lifelong journey, and there's always further to go. And it's better when we're all in it together. Please think of someone you know who could benefit from hearing today's conversation and share this episode with them. We can't thank you enough for listening. Until next time, happy exploring, seekers.